In the heart of the Roman Empire, masks weren't just costumes. They were weapons of war, tools of the dead, and the mark of an actor's soul. Romans wore the faces of their dead ancestors at family funerals. Cavalry soldiers rode into mock battles wearing the faces of beautiful women. And gladiators fought hidden behind bronze, faceless and terrifying. This is the strange, hidden history of masks in ancient Rome. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at a theater mask logo the same way again. Roman theater borrowed heavily from Greek tradition, but Romans made the mask, persona, central to their own comic and tragic plays. Masks let a small cast play many roles. One actor could switch characters just by switching masks backstage in seconds. In massive open-air theaters, seating up to 15,000 to 20,000 people, like the Theater of Pompey, masks exaggerated facial features, so people in the back row could still read the emotion. Fascinating fact: some historians believe the open, rounded mouth of tragic masks acted like a small megaphone, a device called an ekeion, projecting the actor's voice across the massive crowd. Comic masks were deliberately ugly and exaggerated, bulging eyes, twisted grins, meant to represent stock characters like the miser, the braggart soldier, or the cunning slave. Fascinating fact: the word person in modern English comes directly from Latin persona, literally mask or that through which sound comes, personar, to sound through. Every time you say person, you're referencing a Roman theater mask. Masks were color-coded by role: white masks for women's roles, played by men since women couldn't act, dark tanned masks for men, and wild colors for gods, monsters, or slaves. None of these masks survive today, made of linen stiffened with glue, cork, or wood, so everything we know comes from mosaics, wall paintings, and small terracotta miniatures sold as souvenirs, almost like ancient movie merchandise. Fascinating fact: wealthy Romans decorated their dining rooms with mosaic images of these masks, purely for entertainment, the ancient equivalent of hanging a movie poster on your wall. Roman patrician families kept lifelike wax death masks of their ancestors, called imagens maiorum, images of the ancestors. These masks were cast directly from the face of the deceased at the moment of death, a practice historians call one of the earliest forms of portraiture in Western history. Displayed in the atrium, main hall, of the family home inside small wooden cabinets shaped like miniature temples, connected to the family tree with painted lines showing lineage. Fascinating fact: only families whose ancestors had held curule office, like consul, praetor, or aedile, had the legal right to display these masks, called ius imaginum, the right of images. It was essentially a visual resume of political power passed down through generations. At funerals, actors or family members were hired to literally wear these masks and dress in the exact official robes the ancestor once wore, walking through the city in a procession, meaning an entire family's history of dead consuls and generals would appear to walk again through the streets of Rome. The historian Polybius, writing in the 2nd century BCE, described these funeral processions as deeply moving spectacles designed to inspire young Romans watching to achieve equally great deeds. Fascinating fact: these wax masks are considered the ancestor of the modern portrait bust. When Romans began carving marble busts, many historians believe the hyper-realistic, almost unflattering, warts-and-all style was directly influenced by these death masks, which showed wrinkles, sagging skin, and imperfections exactly as they appeared in life. Losing the right to display these masks, for example if a family fell into disgrace, was a massive social humiliation, sometimes worse than losing money. Roman cavalry used elaborate, ornate bronze face mask helmets during military tournament displays called hippica gymnasia, essentially elite parade competitions, not standard battlefield gear. Fascinating fact: many of these cavalry masks depicted idealized, youthful, almost feminine faces. Some historians believe riders wearing these Amazon-style masks would act out the role of foreign, exotic warriors in mock battles meant to entertain and demonstrate military skill to visiting officials. The famous Crosby Garrett helmet, discovered by a metal detectorist in England in 2010, features a strikingly human bronze face beneath a helmet crowned with a mythical griffin, considered one of the finest examples of Roman parade armor ever found. It sold at auction for over £2 million. These masks weren't just decorative, they were functional too, protecting the rider's face during high-speed mock cavalry charges involving spears, javelins, and dodging maneuvers at a full gallop. Fascinating fact: historians debate whether some of these masks were also used symbolically in actual combat. The idea being that a faceless, mask-wearing rider could psychologically terrify an enemy who couldn't read any human expression or fear on the attacker's face. Gladiators wore helmets that served a similar dehumanizing purpose. The Murmillo gladiator wore a heavy, fish-crested helmet with a full-face grille, while the secutor, pursuer, wore a smooth, almost featureless helmet, specifically designed with no protruding edges, so his net-wielding opponent, the rotarius, couldn't snag it with his trident or net. Fascinating fact: because gladiator helmets fully covered the face, the audience often couldn't tell who was winning based on facial expression alone. Spectators relied entirely on body language, making Roman gladiator combat as much a performance of movement as it was of violence. Masks played a role in several Roman religious festivals, blurring the boundary between human, animal, and divine. During the Lupercalia festival, mid-February, young men called Luperci ran through the streets of Rome wearing goatskin garments, associated with fertility and purification rituals. Some ancient sources suggest partial facial coverings tied to the animal disguise. Masked figures also appeared in mystery cult rituals devoted to Bacchus, the Roman god of wine, associated with the Greek Dionysus, where masks symbolized a worshipper temporarily shedding their human identity to become closer to the divine. Fascinating fact: the famous frescoes in the Villa of the Mysteries in Pompeii, one of the best preserved ancient paintings in the world, are believed by many scholars to depict a Bacchic initiation ritual, and some interpretations suggest masked or mask-like imagery tied to this secretive, women-led cult. Masks in religious contexts were considered spiritually dangerous in some Roman writings, because if a mask could summon the identity of a god, ancestor, or spirit, wearing one carelessly was thought to risk letting something other take hold of the wearer, even if only symbolically. Fascinating fact: this same anxiety, that masks are a threshold between our world and something beyond it, appears across nearly every ancient culture, from Egyptian funerary masks to Greek tragedy, suggesting the Romans were tapping into something almost universally human about disguise and identity. The comedy/tragedy mask symbol, still used today for theater and drama worldwide, traces its visual language directly back to Roman and originally Greek stage masks. The concept of a persona, a public identity distinct from one's private self, is a direct linguistic and philosophical inheritance from Roman theater masks, still used today in psychology, Carl Jung's concept of the persona, and everyday language, professional persona, online persona. Fascinating fact: modern Venetian carnival masks, one of the most famous mask traditions in the world today, were partly influenced by centuries of Roman and Italian theatrical mask culture, passed down through medieval commedia dell'arte performers. From concealing grief, to displaying political power, to terrifying enemies, to connecting with the divine, Roman masks reveal a civilization deeply obsessed with the tension between the true self and the self they chose to show the world. From the stage, to the battlefield, to the family shrine, masks in Rome carried far more weight than simple disguise. They were identity, memory, intimidation, and performance, all carved into wood, wax, and bronze. So the next time you see a theater mask logo or hear the word person, remember, it all started right here in the streets of ancient Rome.